Hello and welcome to the In the Money Media Medallion Racing / TaylorMade Breeders' Cup Final Answer Show. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, very far from the Brooklyn bunker here in beautiful San Diego, just a couple of furlongs from the Del Mar racetrack, actually at the offices of the Belly Up world famous music venue, kind enough to take me in today. I'm really excited for today's show and this panel we have put together. I will introduce first from our sponsor in the upper corner of your screen, a man who's done just such a fantastic job with us on shows over the course of this year. Really excited to get his Breeders' Cup final answers. He is Philip Shelton. Philip, how are things?
That's great, Pete. It's a little cold in San Diego. It's been a little. I felt like I'm still stuck in Kentucky.
Yeah, the sunshine we were promised has not arrived. I do think it's a little colder and damper back there in Lexington, where I want to say a nice hello to our live audience with us from Malone's. If we could only master this being two places at once thing, it would be fantastic to be there enjoying some of the wonderful food and, let's face it, whiskey that's going to be on offer at that place. But as it is, not going to complain too much about being out in Southern California, especially when it's Breeders' Cup time, and especially when I get out to hang out with the likes of not only you, Philip, you're up here, I got to get my directions right, but also my friend up here who I've had the pleasure of working with all week. The rumors are true. She did manage to get me up in a hot air balloon this week. I am very proud to say that I have survived. And you want to talk about good composure in the paddock. This one didn't turn a hair up there at 2,000 feet. From her own talk racing to me from the Maryland simulcast feed, she is Naomi Tucker. Naomi, how are things?
Good. I'm glad to be here with you all. I mean, look, Pete, you were not having fun in that hot air balloon. What was the phrase I used earlier? Paralyzed by fear, I think it was. I mean, I was having a blast. I love doing things like that.
Yeah, but you like jump out of airplanes and ride motorcycles. I sit in a room surrounded by records and talk about horse racing. That's more my comfort zone. But
okay.
That video will be up soon. Hopefully, you can check it out on our on the Breeders' Cup Twitter feed, and obviously we'll be sending it around as well at Naomi Tucker up there, at Looms Boldly down here. I'm willing to suffer for my art. And suffer I have for the last several years with the guy I refer to as the usual co-host of this program. He's not here for the intros, but you're going to be seeing him in videos throughout the production. The superstar of Fox Sports that I'm always saying, and I mean this sincerely. He thinks it's a joke. I mean it sincerely. I plucked him out of obscurity, and now he's everywhere. He's even designing shirts like the one that I'm wearing right now, this nice JK Breeders' Cup design. I'm speaking, of course, about the People's Champion, Jonathan Kinchin. He'll be joining us a little bit later, but we got a lot of races to do, and I think we got to dive right in. Let's talk about race number 6 on the Friday card, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. Naomi Tucker, I know you have a strong opinion in here. Let's start with you. Who do you like?
I mean, I do have a strong opinion, but I also don't think she's going to be much of a price. Averly Jane is absolutely terrific in here for Wesley Wood. She outbroke the entire group in the Indian Summer at Keeneland, never headed. Has she really been asked yet? I don't think so. I think she's going to be fastest from the get-go. We're only going 5 furlong. That's kind of key, right? Getting away from the gate well and out-sprinting everyone. I think she can very easily do that. She's going to have to hold off the European kind of cavalry charge, but I think she's capable of doing it. However, price play that we've been having a couple of jokes around here is Twilight Jet, the number 1, Michael O'Callaghan. Look, he's had lots of starts, 10 starts as a 2-year-old. He's super tough. 2 starts ago, jump up middle, Parker. Did run behind Armour, who's in here, but that's 6 furlongs up the hill at Newmarket. That's quite the sort of the challenge there. Twilight Jet's better over 5. He came back, won the Newmarket Academy Cornwallis Stakes over 5 after that. I think he's a great prize user in here. The only thing is you have to think, when we're looking at Breeders' Cups, we do look at history a lot as well. The Juvenile Turf Sprint has been won wire to wire in all its 3 renewals. So another notch on the belt of Averly Jane, who I think is going to outsprint everyone early. And Europeans are 0 from 15 starters in the race to date. So that's the only thing perhaps not working in favor of my price play in here at Twilight Jet. Do you have some interest in Twilight Gleaming as well, the other Wesley Wood runner in here?
I'll actually just chime in quickly because Twilight Jet's the horse that I wanted to talk about. I think when you do the figure conversion work that our friends Sean Borman and Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, have done over on our In the Money Plus site, which you can find at inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. Twilight Jet comes out as fast as any horse in this race. I know your point, Naomi, about the 0 for 15 for the Euros, but it is only in 3 runnings. I think Twilight Jet goes with a big chance at a big price, and I'm also going to use Armor, a runner who has looked very good and has very strong figures and form as well for the European team. The 1 and the 7 on top for me. I also like Derry Nane a little bit as one who's shown plenty of finish, and I think if they do go too fast up front, could be flying late. So you've got it, Naomi, 8-1-6. My numbers are 1, 7, and 11. Philip, what do you think is going to happen in the Juvenile Turf Sprint?
Yeah, normally I would agree. I think the Euros normally just aren't fast enough early. Like the Americans just kind of run them off their feet a little bit. When this race was actually run at Del Mar, when it wasn't a quote-unquote official Breeders' Cup race, a Coolmore 2-year-old actually won. So a Euro did win the race. It was a war front. I think Armor is interesting if I wanted to take it – Hierarchy is interesting as a Euro for Hugo Palmer. He was actually favored in the race that Twilight Jet won last time and didn't run. I think Baymaz they've seemed to take to California really well, like going global as the top 3-year-old filly over here. I think the most interesting part is what happens with One Timer and Averly Jane just drawn right next to each other. E.T. Baird's probably one of the best gate riders there is. One Timer intentionally came out to California to prep for the race in the Speakeasy, which was a win and you're in. And I think they're the 2 speed. If they hook up, I would probably be falling on like Derry Nane. I actually think the other Wesley, so you talked about Averly Jane and Twilight Gleaming. I actually think Coffee Maker is kind of interesting. Early in the year, she was supposed to be the best. Going over to Ascot, he said, this is my best chance of all my 2-year-olds. It just hasn't quite worked. I think her race at Kentucky Downs is probably better than it looked. She was up close to a very fast pace where the last move was the best move. Last time out, Averly Jane just got the complete run of the race at Keeneland. For me, I just think, is Averly Jane the most likely winner? Probably. But she's going to be 2-1, and I'd rather just search for a price because I think there are a lot of really good alternatives. And I think if you're looking at a pick 5, to me, this is a race I'm going to be spreading in.
Philip,
just given the nature of the sequence.
I wrote down 5, 11, and 2 for you. You want to add any other numbers to that mix for your spread?
No, I think my top pick would be Derry Nane, and then I would default to Hierarchy and Coffee Maker after that.
Make it 11, 5, and 2. And with that, we will bring in for the first of our 14 times over the course of this marathon Breeders' Cup Final Answer show, the People's Champion himself, Jonathan Kinchin. What do you like, JK?
Hey, guys. Pretty sure Pete's... Does he have one of my shirts? Pete, why didn't you wear one of my shirts? You're supposed to be helping me sell those shirts. You probably have on some dumb shirt. You could have had on one of my shirts. It's unbelievable. Hi, Naomi and Philip. Breeders' Cup Turf, Juvenile Turf Sprint. Obviously, a lot of money's going to go to the 8 Averly Jane. Makes a ton of sense. She breaks away from there fast. But I think the 6 Twilight Gleaming is interesting. This is a horse that has a fast number back at Belmont. Then has some excuses running in some races overseas when it comes to a figure standpoint. But I do think that she's going to be tough in here, Twilight Gleaming. And that's what I'm going to try to beat Wesley with. The other horse I thought was interesting was the 11 Derry Nane, a horse that won first out for Christoph, and I think that she's one that's probably progressing in the right direction. Not crazy about the draw, but I do think she'll be a nice little price.
There you have it from JK, that vote for Twilight Gleaming. And with that, let's move on to our second Breeders' Cup race number 7, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. And hopefully I'm not going to catch you out with this, producer AJ, but I say we go right back to JK to get his thoughts on race number 7.
The Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, Echo Zulu has been so impressive in her starts. I don't have any concerns really about her handling the extra ground of the mile and a 16th. I think a 1-turn mile at Belmont is pretty taxing from a stamina standpoint. We'll talk a little bit more about that with Jack Christopher, but I'll be rooting and cheering, and I think the 2 Hidden Connection can actually get the job done. She's run well around 2 turns. She seems to be progressing. She seems to be working well. and karma's got to be on her side, right? Think about the opportunity that ownership group had in taking Raylu Gutierrez off, making his first significant start in a Breeders' Cup race. And then you look at the horse like Echo Zulu, who they took Ricardo off. I think karma is definitely on the side of Hidden Connection, just like karma is going to be on my side because Pete didn't wear one of my shirts. I'm sure he has one of my shirts on. His whole bit's going to be buried. That's all right.
They didn't coordinate because here I am representing. It's got like the JK tag and everything, and he just assumes that I'm going to be kicking sand in his face. Not the case. I'm a company man, a team player. We've got the JK shirt on, and I'm just going to give my opinion because it's so similar to JK's. I just think Echo Zulu, as good as she is, she's run very well, but this is going to be the toughest test. She's a very short price. And I think Hidden Connection might have more room for upside in just the third career start and already proven around those 2 turns. It's Hidden Connection for both me and JK in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. Naomi, how do you see it?
Here I thought I was being clever, right? Going not with the favorite. No, I was going to go with Hidden Connection. Are we all just thinking the same? Also, JK, where's my shirt? Huh? I think hello,
I should also point out, by the way, that I paid for this shirt. This was not a gift. So it's not, if he wants me to rep him, he needs to do a little bit more and send a little bit more love my way. I'll throw that out there. Philip, can we make this a party? Is it going to be 4 for 4 for Hidden Connection?
No, I'd probably be slightly against Hidden Connection. I just think, she broke her maiden at Colonial. She ran a fast number. She ran like a 9 on the sheets, which is as fast as any race Echo Zulu's run. She came back in the race at Churchill, which I think was just a pretty soft race. Now, hey, she was awesome. But that race just traditionally has not produced horses that are Breeders' Cup quality. I mean, I remember even Serengeti Empress had a similar type performance in the Pocahontas and then came back and just bombed in the Breeders' Cup. Now, she ended up being a superstar. She won the Kentucky Oaks, was very good. But, in my mind, I like Juju's Map. I think she got 2-turn experience. She proved the last time she doesn't have to be on the lead. She could sit just off. I really liked the way she lengthened in the stretch at Keeneland. It looked like a couple of horses were making a run at her, and she just kind of took off. To me, I'm going to equal weight her and Echo Zulu. I'm going to run 85% of my money through the 2 of them, probably at an equal weight. And then I could be somewhat interested in Tarabi. I think it's really interesting. She ran behind Echo Zulu when Echo Zulu just basically got loose on the lead and won. She ran on well, ended up being like 4 clear of third. And I think it's interesting to me they didn't run back in a final prep. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but she's been working well since, and I could be somewhat interested in her just to get outside of the 3. I think you had a very similar scenario last year. You had like Princess Noor, Day Out of the Office. You had a couple of super logical horses. And if you got outside of them to Vequist, who was like the 4th logical horse, we talk about creating value. It's a huge way to create value. Like the reality is most of the money's running through Echo Zulu, but a lot of it's running through Juju's Map. A lot of it's running through Hidden Connection. If anybody outside them wins, it's like exponential, the payout. So I might run a little bit through Tarabi just as a way to increase in value.
That's a fair point. I mean, when you can zig when others are zagging, and especially in multi-race bets, if that value of a horse outside the clear top of the market can be outsized. So I definitely respect that approach and opinion. Let's move on to our 3rd Breeders' Cup race on Friday. It's the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf. Philip, we're going to keep it with you.
Yeah, this would probably be my strongest opinion on the day. Is I like Koala Princess stretching out to a mile. I think she showed a lot of ability first time out, where she is basically just was way better than everybody she ran against. Now that wasn't Monmouth, but she came back in Kentucky Downs, settled really nice. When the hole opened up on the inside, she just took off. You get Rosario. I do think the inside was the right spot on the day she won. Like, it just felt like Rosario figured out that you wanted to be inside and everybody else was like 5 wide the whole way. But I like her stretching out. I like the fact that she's got enough speed to be on the lead at 5, but she showed the ability to sit off. I think stretching out's fine. The only thing I'm worried about is that she's going to be like 7-2. I hope she keeps her odds. The other horse I think that's interesting, I don't love the quick turnaround, but is Haughty. I think she is probably the best 2-year-old I think that Chad has. And if she would have won, or if she would have not been DQ'd in the first start, I'm saying it was probably a good DQ. But if she wouldn't have been DQ'd, she probably would have been the favorite in like a race like the Miss Grillo or the Jessamine. And then she's not 8 or 10 to 1 in here. She's 3 to 1. So, and she still might get bet pretty hard. I could see her taking a bunch of money just with, high profile connections.
And high-profile connections who had just an incredible amount of success in the race, too. I definitely take that point about the Chad Brown runners. Naomi, where are you in the Juvenile Fillies turf?
So I really like the number 1 Pizza Bianca for trainer Christophe Clement. So her second career start was in a Group 1, the Natoma Stakes at Woodbine. She did not have an easy race there at all. She did have a nice position throughout, just away from that pace. But then when she came around that final turn at the top of the lane, she was still kind of waiting to get out and get a run. Finally, a gap kind of appeared. She went through quite gamely. Had a bit of company around her. I think for 2-year-olds, it's key that they learn something throughout a race. I think she got a really good and sort of experience that day. She went through game. Look, no answer to Wild Beauty in that spot, who was Charlie Appleby's runner for Godolphin in there. It was a solid filly. The number came back well, an 85 buyer. And look, I just love her breeding. She is out of White Hot, the dam. The dam is a half sister to Epsom Derby winner Pour Moi. Of course, Pour Moi himself also sided another Derby winner himself in Wings of Eagle. So just absolutely terrific pedigree. And of course, like I said, Wild Beauty was a Godolphin horse, a Franco filly who represented that European interest. So Pizza Bianca, I think, could really, step up to the plate here.
I like Pizza Bianca as well, but my top pick is number 3, Cachet. I've really liked the way she's looked in the mornings. I like the speed that she's shown in her races, between how she looks physically and that speed that she's shown. I think she's going to be suited to the 2 turns and the USA configuration. I've talked before about the speed figures that some of the team has come up with. She is not far behind at all the best of these. Mise en Scène was one I was interested in off the pre-entries. She's drawn out in the parking lot. I think I can oppose her from out there. The Pizza Bianca case, I'm not going to make it any better than Naomi. That was a very fast race. The Wild Beauty subsequently came back and flopped, but maybe she was back a little quick off that effort. Maybe you don't have to take that form so literally. There's some part of me that wants to say, Wild Beauty going back home and losing shows that the European fillies are going to be better. But that's not necessarily the case, given the fact that Pizza Bianca is still so progressive and she hasn't run since that day, and it's just the 3rd start. So in the main, I'm going to try to get out with the 3 and the 1 in here. I definitely, the horses Philip mentioned, I'm definitely interested in working in there as backups potentially, but a whole lot of 3 and 1 for me. Let's bring in the People's Champ and see what he came up with in this race. Very curious to hear from our man JK and see if he takes any more shots at me as well.
And the Juvenile Fillies turf, obviously this race has been dominated by Chad Brown, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say he's going to win it again this year with the 11 Haughty. Haughty's a horse that, admittedly, when this horse ran on debut, I thought this horse can't be very good. Chad never rides Junior Alvarado, but there was a situation where Joel had kind of picked the Clement horse and blah, 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 and Chad basically kind of got stuck with Junior. Junior wins the race, gets disqualified. They try to enter in a stake, don't get in on the AE. They win the maiden, and lucky enough, they draw in here. I don't care what race she won. She did it pretty impressively. She's tactical. She should be able to work out a trip from the outside, and I think that she's the one that will offer the most value in here. The 13 Missing Scene is another one who I thought makes sense. Not at the best draw, but we've seen that before from these European horses, like Hit It a Bomb, one from the 14. I don't think it's just there's no shot that she can get the job done, but she's going to have to work out a trip from the inside. And Pizza Bianca down on the inside as well. Del Mar, I love horses drawn on the inside. They can save ground, tighter turns there. It's basically kind of an automatic play for me. Any horse drawn on the inside at Del Mar with talent, I use. So I'm going to go with the 11 Haughty on top, but I'll use the other ones as well.
All right, good stuff from JK as we wrap up our coverage of the Juvenile Fillies turf and move on to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, which goes as race number 9 on Friday night. I'll tell you what, we'll do what we did last time, AJ, and we'll bring JK back in right away to get his thoughts on this one.
In the Juvenile, I talked about it a little bit earlier. I love Jack Christopher. I'll be playing because that's scary. I'll be playing in the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge, and I'll be all in on Jack Christopher. I think he's a talented racehorse. I think the speed figure is steps ahead of these other horses in here. I have no concerns about the added distance for him. Sure, we can talk about distance with Jack Christopher next spring when we're looking at these mile and an eighth, mile and a quarter races for 3-year-olds. When we're talking about a mile and a 16th race coming in off of a pace contested flat mile at Belmont, I don't see Jack Christopher having any issues at all. And in fact, I think it'll be the same 1-2 finish we saw in the Champagne with Jack Christopher in the 10 Commander Performance.
JK and I see this one so similarly. I'm just going to go ahead and piggyback my thoughts on to it. I think Jack Christopher, with his speed, while it's not the break I would have chosen, he breaks with alacrity. I think he'll be able to get away from there. I don't think he's going to have trouble negotiating the 2 turns. I think he's a very likely winner. Command Performance is a horse I also like to come running late. This horse shapes like as time and distance continue. I think those are going to be his friends. I'd like him for maybe a little bit of a saver and or an underneath play. And then the underneath play at a price that I'm a little bit interested in, just based on the way he's finished up his races, is the number 3, Oviat Class. So I'll agree with JK's 1 and 10 and throw the 3 in a little bit as well. Philip, how do you see it?
Yeah, I think tactically it's just such an interesting race because you have the 2 main Bafferts, I'd say, drawn. Corniche is drawn on the far outside. What kind of trip is he going to work out? And Pinehurst, who's drawn only a couple stalls inside of him. Both of them have a lot of ability. At Pinehurst, kind of, I guess they're trying to make stallions, right? Pinehurst wins a Grade 1, so he lets Corniche take a turn and win the American Pharoah. But then you don't really know, like, does he want 2 turns? I think Twirling Candies are really honest. And I think sometimes it is true. I think a mile and a 16th is a lot different. Like some of these horses that can maybe get the distance in the British Cup Juvenile aren't going to get the Derby distance. To me, I just think it's probably Jack Christopher. I don't love the pace. I think the rail ended up being probably a fine draw because the other speed is drawn so far outside that he could end up getting a very similar trip to what he got at Belmont, where he just broke out and then ended up sitting right in behind. I'll be most heavily weighted to him. I would agree if I'm playing any sort of vertical wager, like a try exacta, I could definitely have Oviat Class in. I thought he ran really good at Del Mar last time or 2 back. And then he was just way too far back in the American Pharoah. I mean, he just had no shot. At one point I thought, man, he's going to get eased. And then I looked down, I was like, oh, geez, he made up what felt like about 40 lengths in the stretch. So I could use him too, but I'd be most of my money going to Jack Christopher.
Naomi, where are you?
Very similar here. Jack Christopher is tough to beat in this spot. Look, I think we all agree that in the Champagne Stakes, he wasn't away as quickly, but he did show a new dimension there, sitting behind the leader, taking over around the bend and just waving goodbye to the field. That was a huge figure that came back. But actually, his debut figure, 92 buyer, that made in special weight, is higher than the majority of horses have ran in this entire field. Of course, Chap Brown won this in 2017 with Good Magic at this track, 11-1 upset. I'm going to have to go with Jack Christopher on the rail, but to give some new insight on the runner that we kind of touched upon, the 12 Corniche for trainer Bob Baffert, 6 winners of this race have come out of the American Pharoah Stakes. It's been a terrific prep for this. Look, the draw is not ideal. I think he's going to kind of have to overcome that, and hence I'm not too keen on it. But look, he had an outside draw on debut that was right here at Del Mar, going short, granted 5.5 furlongs, but he was able to take over from that high 10 gate, flew over to take the lead. So definitely kind of, has been able to do that before. Look, I know different ball game here going the mile and 16. I think Corniche is still very sharp on the outside and interesting, but like the horse to beat in here is Jack Christopher. And you just have to kind of go with him. Have interest in Command Performance as well underneath, of course, ties in with that Jack Christopher horse. You have to kind of, encourage this horse, I feel, a little bit. And I think Irad Ortiz might just be a bit more aggressive at that perhaps Tyler Gaffalione was in his last race in the Champagne. I think he needs to be a little bit more forwardly placed to be really in play here. But look, we were talking about the fact that there's an abundance of speed. Could it set up for a horse like Command Performance?
Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf is the final race on the Breeders' Cup Friday. Future Stars Friday. I like the number 1 Modern Games in this spot. I like the way this horse looks during the mornings, a very athletic sort. I think is going to be able to get away from there, from that inside draw, and be involved every step of the way. I think a very interesting potential runner in this spot, and a horse that's been laid out for this race, been the target a long time for Charlie Appleby, who's just done nothing but have an incredible amount of success around the world, and especially in North America this season. I also like Portfolio Company, number 10 in this race. Chad Brown, once again, this is a horse that ran a very fast figure last time, and I suspect he might be able to do a little bit better, not being front running and being able to sit in behind and finish like so many Chad runners do when they're shown to their best effect. Philip, what do you think is going to happen in this race?
I really like both of the Godolphins, I think. My top pick is probably going to be Tiz the Bomb. He broke his maiden on the dirt by like 15 lengths. He came back and won at Kentucky Downs. And I like that he's been very versatile. Like, he won an off-the-turf race on the lead. He was a little bit further back at Kentucky Downs. Then he set a little bit closer at Keeneland. I like the inside draw. I'm probably 4-2-1, 4-1-2, something like that. I think the interesting thing to me is just, we talk about it a lot in handicapping, but just trying to read intentions of connections, and it's like Albar came over and won a grade 1 in the U.S. with Frankie Dettori, but they kind of took a little bit of the path of least resistance in Europe. And I think maybe the race at Haydock that he won, where he won on good affirm, they said, hey, maybe this is a horse, for the U.S., but then they went to a little listed stake where, in modern games, you could even say a little bit of the same thing. But, I don't see a lot of difference between the two of them. So to me, I'd just be interested in probably Albar, what could be a bigger price. And I think, hard to go wrong with either one of those horses in my mind. But probably make the 4 my top pick, just drawn well and versatile running style.
4, 1, and 2 for Philip. Naomi, where are you in this one?
Well, if you would have thrown it to me first, I would have gone, Pete, stop stealing my picks. I think we've done too many preview shows together. You're clearly taking my notes here.
Wait a second. Doesn't that cut both ways?
I'm on to you. Look, I have Modern Games on top for Charlie Appleby. He was winner of the Tattersall Summerfield Stakes. Not sure how quick he's going to be early. He was happy leading by himself and just kind of keeps on going at Newmarket. And I keep reiterating this, the Newmarket straight, he was going 7 furlongs, but it's a little bit of a dip and then they go upward. So it's a test of stamina late. So certainly distance, no problem here at all. Bested Trident, who was second in the Group 1 Prix-Morny, 6 furlong at Deauville, which is a 2-year-old top event in Europe. He's very well experienced. And look, we've been highlighting Charlie Appleby across the pond. He's won 5 different grade or Group 1s with 4 different runners this year. So you have to also give a little bit of credit to Albar with Frankie Dettori on board. Completely missed the kick in the Grade 1 Summer Stakes. I don't think he's going to get away with that here, but he tips out in the center, accelerates well late. Little bit green, perhaps. Hung Ingrid's a little bit lately changed, but the way he missed the kick that day, he hasn't done that in the past. He's handy. He's been on the lead in the past, so I'm forgiving him for that. And I do have a strong interest in Portfolio Company as well. Look, Chad Brown runner, ran into Annapolis, had the inside draw that day. That was jumping from that small chute on the clubhouse term in the Pilgrim at Belmont. Had to be used to get into position. He was in front early to make sure the field doesn't come over on him. Settles well for Rosario. Locks horns with Annapolis. And the two absolute ding-dong battle down the straight. Terrific effort. No Annapolis in here. He's out with an ankle chipper, unfortunately. Of course, Chad Brown won this with Structure in 2019. So I actually have Portfolio Company underneath. Modern Games on top, Portfolio Company underneath. And Alba here, just a little bit of interest in as well. But nobody's mentioned Dubawi Legend, though. He's an interesting one in here for me. I have him just kind of want to wait and see a little bit. But look, why draw not idea? I think they're going to take back. He actually has a bit more sprinter stride in my books, but he does come out of a terrific race in the Dewhurst. Huge step forward he took that day. Was second behind Native Trail. Native Trail is an unbeaten great Group 1 National Stakes winner. Dubawi Legend could certainly step back up in here as well. James Doyle knows him very well. They've been schooling him around the paddock. They've been going around. So, he's a bit interesting, but I must admit, I think the draw works against him. And I just don't know what they're going to do tactics-wise. So Modern Gains on top, Portfolio Company, and then Altbauer, the other Charlie Appleby runner as well for me.
It's an open-looking race. It's interesting. A lot of love for Modern Games. Let's see what Jonathan Kinchin has to say.
To wrap up the Friday card, we'll go to the Juvenile Turf. And this is a race where I like a couple horses down towards the inside. I talked about the inside at Del Mar, the one Modern Games, winner of the Somerville last time, has a nice speed figure on time form and should work out a perfect trip from the inside, saving ground. Has a little bit of tactical speed as well. I don't think it'll be as tactical as what we saw with Mendelssohn when he won from the inside, but I do think Modern Games can get the job done in here. And then the 5 Slipstream is a horse that I absolutely love in here. Slipstream is a horse that ran in that Belmont 6 furlong turf sprint, and even before the race, the plan was with Christoph, if this horse wins, we're going to go in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. And that's exactly what they did. Joel Rosario is going to work out a nice trip from the 5 hole, saving ground for a turf sprinter, stretching out. The 1 and the 5 I'm going to build a lot of things around.
All right, that wraps up our coverage of Friday. We're going to move to Saturday. We're going to take a break after 2 of the Saturday races. Team, let's try to keep the run of show right on point for our friends there in Lexington. So we've got a little intermission with some fun stuff coming up. So let's try to wrap these 2 races, these 2 first Breeders' Cup races on Saturday in just a couple of minutes. We'll keep things pretty pithy. So hopefully we're going to still have time at the end and be able to do questions and some other fun stuff like that. But the first Breeders' Cup race on Saturday is race number 4. It's the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Short field in this spot. Just 5 are going to go to post. Philip, we're going to bring you in to give your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so we have Bella Sophia in here, so we're obviously a little biased. I just think it feels like a 2-horse race. I think there's a small chance you get a scenario where Gamine, Bella Sophia hook up, and maybe a horse like CC takes advantage. But yeah, I think the question is Bella Sophia feels like the now horse. Gamine was the now horse last year, and while I don't think she's the same horse she was last year, she's still been good enough to win every race she's running. It's going to be a huge challenge. I think the big thing for us was we drew outside of Gamine, so we have tactical options. We can play the break, see what happens. If we can sit right off, or if Gamine breaks a step slow, we can go to the lead. It's going to be a great race. I think to me, it's just those 2. And, from a selfish perspective, I'll probably just be playing a lot of Bella Sophia, hoping she gets home.
She's looked good. That's for sure. And calm, and maybe this is going to end up being a 2-speed number, just like you're saying, Philip. But I can't shake the scenario for betting purposes in my head of maybe them hooking up and Gamine having enough left in the tank to soften up Bella Sophia, maybe just enough for a runner like CC, who you mentioned, to be able to get the job done. CC's my official top pick in the race, but obviously very excited to see what Bella Sophia does. We'll be using her as well and rooting for you guys in this year's Filly and Mare Sprint. Naomi, how do you see this one?
Look, Pete, we've been discussing Bella Sophia for a little bit now. I really, really love her. I like the draw. I think she's really got, an advantage being on the outside of Gamine, allows her to, see if she can apply a little bit of pressure, or maybe just sit on her quarters, wherever she's comfortable. And she's going to mainly be the one to keep Gamine honest. And look, I saw her this morning. Rudy Rodriguez aboard. Actually took a video, shameless Twitter sideway here if you want to see. She was with the pony, and I know that Bella Sophia in the past is bit, something she gets a bit keyed up, loves being with the pony, gets pats, resting her, cocking her hook, resting her leg, really comfortable. Look, she's, as Pete says, the now horse. She's the 3-year-old. This race has been won by 3-year-olds in the last 3 editions. Of course, title defender Gamine was a 3-year-old when she won it last year. Gamine is the full package. So you have to use her. To me, it looks like the Gamine and Bella Sophia are the most interesting horses in this field. Gamine, Johnny Velasquez once told me it's like sitting in a really nice sports car. You know what you've got underneath you, the kind of engine. You just have to push the button or press your foot down and she'll go for you. So that is kind of scary with her, right? So she is the filly to beat. Do I want to take a 3 to 5 or even shorter? No. I'd rather go with Bella Sophia, who I think is doing terrifically well, and I'll take a chance with her.
Let's see what JK has to say. We used to joke on the show he was such a Bob Baffert fan. He had a custom silver wig made that he would wear out and around. And just sometimes when he was feeling salty, sitting in his house back there in Austin, Texas. Let's see if the silver wig is in effect for this one. JK, what do you think?
The filly and mare sprint, pretty straightforward to me. Obviously, Gamine has the credentials. We've seen what she's done throughout her career. She is the most likely winner of this race, but she's not the type of super horse. It just is a complete standout to me. She'll probably win. I'm going to try to beat her a little bit here with Bella Sophia drawn towards the outside. Is progressive looking 3-year-old who's running very, very fast numbers. The other horse I think is interesting that I wish this race is being run somewhere else is the 4 Cece. But I've heard it for too many times, too many years. I don't think she necessarily loves it at Del Mar. That's a little bit of a concern for me. I think she could come picking up the pieces if Gamine and Bella Sophia happen to get hooked up. But I don't think this is the slam dunk free square that everybody else thinks it is. Luckily, it's not in the mix of too many important wagers on the day.
So let me get this straight. I'm the only knucklehead who doesn't pick the sponsor's horse on top. I don't know. I got to give myself a talking to on this one. No, that's great stuff. And yeah, short field, but an interesting race and one we're going to all have a tremendous rooting interest in to kick off Saturday. One more race, and then we're going to take a break. Race number 5. It's the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, a race where Naomi gave out the winner last year. Let's see if she can go one better and do it again for the double this time around. Naomi, what are your thoughts here?
Not easy. This is not an easy race, but it seems like my entire Breeders' Cup is hinging around one horse that I've been tipping to everyone. Trained by the same trainer that also has last year's winners, Glass Slippers in here, Kevin Ryan, the number 2, Emirati Anna. Near set a record at Hamilton 3 starts ago. Hence, I was kind of on board with him in the Nunthorpe and next time out because he was 40-1, ran second behind a very fast runner in Winter Power, comes back in the Betfair Sprint Cup and showed them all that it wasn't a fluke run. Showed them all he was the real deal. I think he's doing great. He is a 5-year-old, but look, he's experienced. He had some time. That was on the 4th of September. Kevin Ryan knows what it takes. And look, Glass Slippers, I don't know if she's arguably been as strong as she was as a 4-year-old coming into this. She's still doing well, but I'm starting to then look at other horses underneath. I love the number 4, Lieutenant Dan. He's 2 from 2 at Del Mar. This is your Cali runner that probably has the best chance in this race because actually record-wise, California-based horses had won 4 back-to-back turf sprints until Glass Slippers came along for Kevin Ryan last year. So if you're looking for a California-based runner, I think Lieutenant Dan is incredibly interesting as well.
I'll piggyback on just because I'm a big Emirati Anna fan as well. And the current prices we're seeing in the UK of 7 or 8 to 1 to me are clearly too big for a horse with the best figures and form, the way that I see it in the race. I'm also a big Kamari fan, and she's been looking pretty well in the morning. She's run some very fast figures, grade 1 winner on dirt. Would be no surprise. I definitely want some of her in the mix as well. International prices earlier this week were way too big on her. We'll see what the market does in this spot. Certainly seems like there's going to be a lot of market enthusiasm for Golden Pal. And I'll ask you, Philip, are you with or against Golden Pal in this spot? And what's your approach going to be?
I just think my biggest thing is it's 5 furlongs. You know, there are very few races at the Breeders' Cup that alter distance every year. Like last year was at Keeneland, it was 5.5. It's softer turf. It can play to horses that want to close ground, and it's set up perfect for a Euro. California feels like it's more of a speed thing, and it's 5. So to me, I don't want to get away from anybody that's going to be more than a couple lengths off the pace. If you just said who's the best horse, I'd probably say Emirati Anna, but I think he could take a bunch of steam. I just don't love to me, the break is so important, and we've brought over a bunch of Euros, and the one thing that they almost always do is break a step slow. And in this race, that is like a kiss of death. We have Charmaine's Mia in here. I'm not sure if she's good enough to win. What I would tell you is like her good races from early this year put her right in the mix. Can she return to that level of form? I think the big thing last time was she was in a speed duel, which we didn't want. She's drawn outside of the 2 main speed here. If you watch her race from earlier this year at 6 furlongs at Santa Anita, she kind of got this outside trip where she just bulled her way up to the front. Maybe she could get in at a mix. I think at 30-1, she's a horse that on her day, she's very competitive, and I think she's going to be right there maybe sitting third off Lieutenant Dan and Golden Pal. So, to me, I'd be playing a lot of Lieutenant Dan. I'd be playing a lot of Golden Pal. I don't love Golden Pal, and I don't love him at what's going to be a short price, but I just feel like there's so much speed in, or you have to be close. And the Euros are tough for me to take at 5. If it was like at 6, I'd love a bunch of the Euros. Emirati Anna would be my top pick. I think 5's the equalizer.
I wrote down 7, 4, and 3 for your official selections. Philip, do you feel good about 7, 4, and 3 as your numbers, or do you want me to mix that up a bit?
No, I think that's fine. I gotta go home team on all our horses. So I'm running it. I'm gonna have a huge parlay going. So we're gonna Delmar's gotta get some extra cash for us.
I love it. Well, you'll end up down in the money room if it all works out right. And yeah, I mean, you make a very compelling case for your horse, Charmaine's Mia, at 30-1 on the morning line, and you might see something on the order of that. We're going to close up this portion of the show before our intermission. But first, let's bring him in one more time. The People's Champion, Jonathan Kinchin.
The Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. This is a race I think that probably gives a lot of horse players headaches, not knowing exactly what to do. I love Golden Pal as an animal, very talented horse. He's always kind of been brilliant, shown some brilliance, but his speed figure last time was just not fast enough to be the short price he's going to be on Saturday. I'm going to try to beat Golden Pal, and I'm going to try to do it with a filly that I've been following all year, and that's the 8 Caravel. It's a horse that ran extremely fast races at Monmouth and Saratoga. Then they tried her going 6 furlongs at Woodbine. That didn't work out. She didn't run particularly bad that day, but she didn't run the big numbers she had been running. Then she ran on the soft at Parks. Now she's going to get the flat 5 furlongs at Breeders' Cup on firm ground, and I think she's going to really appreciate that. I'm going to build a lot of things around the 8 Caravel. I'll also use a couple of others in here. I thought the 6, A Case of You, has some fast time form U.S. numbers. I know there's this saying that these Breeders' Cup turf sprints aren't won by European horses, but ask Glass Slippers about that last year. And the 4, Lieutenant Dan, another horse that likes Del Mar, I'll be using as well underneath, trying to find a way to beat Golden Pal, who I just think is going to be extremely overbet.
All right, with that, we're going to take our intermission. We're going to be back in just a few minutes' time for those of you watching this live stream, wherever you are around the world, and we'll do the final 7 races. But for now, we'll take a break. If you're watching online, I'm going to hop in the comments and just make comments while not make comments, hopefully answer comments and questions in there while we go along. And then we'll save some of them. We're going to get some questions, hopefully, from in the room as well to do at the end, assuming we can get this boat into port remotely on time. But we will be back after a short intermission. Hello and welcome once again to our Medallion Racing Breeders' Cup Final Answer Show. Our intermission is in the books, and we're ready to take a look at the last 7 races on this Saturday card. PTF back with you along with Philip Shelton, Naomi Tucker, and JK popping in with his remote visits as well. And without further ado, let's keep things rocking and rolling with our 3rd of the Breeders' Cup races on Saturday. It goes as race number 6, the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, a race I'm going to suspect we're probably not going to have to spend that much time on, but we'll see. You never know. Maybe somebody has something a bit more clever than I do. Naomi, let's bring you back in to get your idea of the winner.
Like, I don't feel like I'm going to be that clever in this race. 5 of the last 8 dirt mile winners have gone gate to wire. I think Life is Good fits that profile. Not a reach, clearly. I just don't see anyone really giving him that much trouble early. I have a little bit of interest in number 3, Ginobili, 3 from 4 at Del Mar. I completely butchered that name. I'm so sorry to the connections there. The best part about this horse is that he can actually pass horses, and that's what you have to do to color Life is Good. I think Silver State on the Rail is interesting for Steve Asmussen as well. But like I said, I am not being, very imaginative in here.
Perhaps it's not a huge surprise that our Dutch national doesn't know about Manu Ginobili, the legendary NBA player. I don't know. I don't know. I thought they played basketball over there, but no. I'm with you on Life is Good. I don't have much to add. I think you got the fastest horse with a pace advantage in a good place in the form cycle, and I'm going to be all about Life is Good in the Dirt Mile. Philip?
Yeah, I'm probably going to be Life is Good. I like Ginobili too. I'd probably fade Silver State a little bit. I think I'd like it maybe better if it was a 1-turn mile. He's super consistent, but I'm not sure that maybe Ginobili's best and Life is Good runs his best race. He's going to win. I could be somewhat interested in 8 Rings on the outside. You know, they primarily had sprinted him. They stretched him out to 2 turns and an allowance. At Santa Anita, he was, 2 to 5. He was supposed to win, but he ended up winning pretty good. Ran his best number. I think keeping him at 2 turns here is kind of interesting. I don't think he could beat the top 2, but, if I wanted to hammer an exacta or something, I could see myself playing something like a Life is Good over 8 Rings and just going from the old Baffert to the current Baffert.
We're going to bring JK back in now. Knowing his predilection for betting horses like Life is Good, I'm going to promise to eat this entire plastic bottle if he picks a horse other than Life is Good. So confident am I. JK, make an honest man out of me here. Who are you picking?
The Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, everyone's favorite race. I think some people like this race. I don't mind it. Life is Good is a talented horse. What a race the Allen Jerkins was. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we get to the sprint. But all 5 horses out of the Allen Jerkins came back and won. Life is Good, Following Sea, Jackie's Warrior. I think Life is Good got a perfect setup last time. Just a perfect set prep race for this effort. I think he's going to be really hard to beat. He'll be one of the shortest price horses on the day. I don't think he's an absolute lock, though. I think a horse like Silver State, who was on a nice little 4-race win streak earlier in the year, could jump up and bite him here. And then also the 3 Ginobili, who likes it at Del Mar, had a big race. Last 2 races have been huge and really does appreciate the surface. Remember, Del Mar is a deeper racetrack than it has been in the past, and I wonder if some of these East Coast horses are going to like that. Will Life is Good? I'm not sure. He's a talented horse who's run well on West Coast racetracks before, but it is definitely a question mark. I think he'll be hard to beat, but I will have some savers using Ginobili and Silver State.
I think that counts. I was expecting something a little more of a proclamation from him that he couldn't lose or something like that, but it was clearly the top pick. So the bottle will stay on the table and not in my guts. Let's move on to the Filly and Mare Turf. Philip, we're going to bring you back in to get your thoughts on this one. What numbers are you using?
So we have Going to Vegas in here. I think this race is very competitive. If I was just purely betting, I'd probably play the Japanese filly, Loves Only You. I think she might just be the best horse in the race. She ran second against Colts in Dubai. I think our filly has a big shot to run well. We have Going to Vegas on the rail. She's probably going to end up on the lead. I think the mile and 3/8 is a big benefit for us. I think the fact that it's a quick run into the first turn, and it's a 3-turn race, so she's drawn on the rail. She's not going to be swung wide the whole way around. And I think what we found is that she can get a mile and an eighth if everything goes perfect. Like if they go 48 and change for the half, she can get a mile and an eighth. If they go 46 and change for the half, she can't get a mile and an eighth. It absolutely kills her closing kick. Well, they're not going 46 to the half in this race, and it looks like nobody wants the lead except for her. So I think she has a huge shot. She's going to give our guys a big thrill because she can really quicken. And then it's just going to be a question of, is she good enough? And, it's the best horses in the world. But I think she has a big shot to run well. And, I think the Japanese filly, Loves Only You, is probably tough. I think the Europeans are good, but I don't you could have said 4 months ago that Love would have been 8 to 5 in here, but that's not the current Love that we're getting. So I'd switch to the Japanese Love instead of the Irish Love.
I'll chime in because I like both of them, and I'm going to be playing them in an exacta, I think, at some point. I still think Love's overall body of work is consistent enough to make her very dangerous in a typical running of the Filly and Mare Turf. And I think that Loves Only You already made the case on form and figures right there. Some of the best turf form that anybody has on offer in either of any of the 3 big turf races. I think you can argue that Loves Only You's got it. I'm going to be playing it that way and hoping that it turns out that in the end it's true. All you need is love, and Loves Only You in the Filly and Mare Turf. What do you think, Naomi?
I mean, we're all over this race. I feel like I'll tell you why I like Loves Only You as well, because Euros have won this race for the last 5 years. And in 2017, when we were here, we saw Wahida and Rhododendron run the exacta for Godolphin versus Coolmore. Wahida stoked the pace, whereas Rhododendron came with a late run under Ryan Moore. I actually look back at that and I thought perhaps he moved a little bit too late there on Rhododendron. I think she could have possibly gotten to Wahida, but that's, a whole different story. Loves Only You. She has that kind of tactical running style that Wahida displayed on that day. I think she's Japan's best chance at a Breeders' Cup winner. They still haven't got one. They're very keen to get one. I I think Love's Only You can get it done. She's going to have to, make sure that she gets away well ridden handily. But look, you look at some of her body of work, that Dubai Shima Classic effort would win this because she ran against Mishriff, Chronogenesis, and she's run really well before that too. I find it hard to see past her. Do you think Warlike Goddess is really interesting for Bill Mott? She's been looking, Pete, you said it, I think when we were talking earlier, she's been looking terrific on track. And of course, she did win at Saratoga. Now, Saratoga is a little bit less tight than Del Mar, but it does represent it quite nicely in a way. I think it's transferable, especially comparing to some of these Euros that haven't gone these tight turns. I mean, Love's Only You. Shatin, Maidan, all those tracks, they aren't tight like this. So if you want to kind of poke holes in that, perhaps you can. Or like Goddess, I think is interesting, but she does come from behind, so she'll have to be, ridden to perfection in terms of time. But of course, Love for Aidan O'Brien, she had such an incredible 3-year-old season. She faced all the right horses in her last season as well. And as a 4-year-old, the Jotmont, she ran behind Mishriff as well in there. Interesting, they opted to go here instead of the Turf. Hasn't been at the top of the game this season yet. Pete, I loved an opinion that you had why they went into the Turf here, actually.
Yeah, well, it was a question somebody brought up on another show. Is it a negative that they decided not to go into the Turf and instead chose the filly and mare Turf? Maybe is that a lack of confidence? My point about that with Love was that by her defecting, it allowed another Coolmore horse to get in off the AE list and get into the Turf. So I didn't necessarily see that as a negative. And I'm glad you mentioned Warlike Goddess, just because that would be my third pick in the race. I mean, just a sort of a prototypical done nothing wrong. And while I think the others may have a bit of a form and figure edge on her, I will probably, I talked about the box exact I want to play with those two, but I will be covering up and using Warlike Goddess in multiples as well.
I think this is a really interesting discussion because if you look at Warlike Goddess, she is 7-2, and Love's Only You is 4-1. I mean, I wouldn't bet Warlike Goddess at 6-1 if she was only 2 points higher than Love's Only You. If you just like from a price perspective, if you compare her to Going to Vegas, she's run 2 points faster. And I think sometimes people get this East Coast hype, which is completely well-deserved. The West Coast horses generally completely underperform. East Coast horses run well. But if you look at like her last races, Warlike Goddess, she beat Delta's Kingdom, who is a 90-buyer filly. She beat My Sister Nat, who has traditionally been a cut below grade 1 horses. She beat Great Island last time. She just hasn't beaten anybody, and it's not like she's been visually impressive. She's physically on the track has been almost as good as any horse I've seen this week. But at 7-2, she's basically beaten a bunch of grade 3 horses all year. How could you take that?
I don't love the price. I
agree with him here so much.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff. We should move it forward though, guys, just because we have so much ground to cover and we are meant to wrap at 8. So that's 25 minutes for the rest of the card and questions. But of course, before we pivot to the next race, let's bring back Jonathan Kinchin.
The Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. This is another race that is pretty typical for me. Ultimately, I'm going to go with the 4 Rozier. Is that what we're calling her? I'm sure Pete's, not that Pete's like the pronunciation man, but I mean, he has written a book before, so I'll just let Pete. How do you say it? Oh, basically what I said. This is a horse I think is going to end up getting a nice trip drawn towards the inside as well. Should be able to work out a trip, saving ground. Got a fast number, was impressive in France. The 6 Love, another horse that I'll be using. Hasn't won in a while, but has been facing a lot better than she'll face in here, in my opinion. And then the 7 Warlike Goddess, definitely the best of the U.S. chances. I just wonder how good she really is. I'm not going to be shocked if she wins this race by 3, but I do wonder who has she been beating up on, and are we getting a little bit of a false sense of how good she is based on those races? She's definitely a horse that I'll use. I'm not going to try to get cute and beat her in here. And then the 2 Pocket Square is a horse I will be using underneath. I think that maybe Pocket Square has finally been figured out. Let's not forget, she was the favorite going into the Just the Game. And then she kind of fell out of form, and now she's back in here off back-to-back wins. Maybe Irad and Chad finally figured her out. She'll be a nice price drawn towards the inside.
Breeders' Cup Sprint is a race I'm hoping we can get back on schedule and maybe do fairly quickly. Naomi, what's your idea of the winner?
Jackie's Warrior. He is a monster. He 2 starts ago in the Alan Jerkins allowed Life is Good to get away from him as the pace was so strong. He kind of slid back there, got through on the inside, dueled, and really showed his heart there. It feels like this is a 3-year-old who's grown into himself and really has found his stride. So he is going to be a short price, but I do really love him in this spot. Perhaps the only other interest I have is the number 9, Dr. Chevelle for Mark Glatt here, Flavien Prat. Look, this is a 3-year-old who won a Grade 1 race at Del Mar before. And look, this Santa Anita Sprint Championship has produced 7 Breeders' Cup Sprint winners, more than any other prep race in this division. And he didn't jump on top, but he did take over heading towards that 3/8 pull on the rail. Flavien was asking him all the time. He wasn't kind of in hand. And I did like that he responded to that. That's not always the case with horses. Interesting also note actually there, the buckle of the rein broke, I do believe, at one of the jumps, and Flavien Prat was kind of grappling with it, and in the end he just rode with just a left rein, I feel. So that was a bit of a clinic there. Dr. Chevelle, the fact that he just ran out like that without that kind of hold up guidance from the jockey, that's pretty good.
That was some amazing horsemanship in that race by Prat for sure. Philip, what do you think about the sprint?
Yeah, it was weird because you didn't know that he had lost the rein like immediately, and you were like, man, he's making this like really aggressive kind of move to pull away, and that was why. But I think I actually like him. I'm not going to spend a ton of money trying to beat Jackie's Warrior. He's super logical, and I would argue maybe of the really short price favorites that you're going to get with like Gamine, Echo Zulu, Life is Good, him, and Latruska. I'd say Life is Good is probably the most likely winner of that group, and then I think he might be the second most likely. But I'm interested in Dr. Chevelle, and I think the thought I would say is I don't know that Jackie's Warrior against older horses where he's going to take pace pressure, drawn down inside. How does he handle 6? He's most of his races just the way the calendar works for 3-year-olds. They're mostly 7 furlong races. He won last time at 6, but that was like a paid workout. So to me, I just take a small stand trying to beat him, but I'm not spending a bunch of money, and I'm not losing any multi. The majority of my money is going to be to Jackie's Warrior, but I will use some for Dr. Chevelle.
Doctor, this horse, everybody pronounces his name differently. I think it's Dr. Chevelle, and I think it's the real name of the Mr. Freeze character in one of the Batman movies. I think Brittany Earton told me that, and what Brittany Earton says goes as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, I'll write you down 9-2 in that one. I'm all about Jackie's Warrior. I mean, I think it's a very simple case. Fastest horse in the race with a potential pace advantage, and boy, he showed his mettle as a racehorse. Underneath, I'm going to guess that maybe Jackie can just blow up all the other speed, and the numbers I like to come running in underneath, and maybe just for a penny on top, CZ Rocket, who I feel like was probably pace compromised the last day in the Santa Anita Sprint Championship. And I like the look of Aloha West as well and the late speed that he's shown. But this is a 90 to 95% of my horizontal tickets running through Jackie's Warrior with those other 2 as tiny backups. This is another one with JK. I'll be very surprised if he picks anything other than Jackie's Warrior. But let's see what the man has to say for himself.
On to the Breeders' Cup Sprint, Jackie's Warrior. What a cool racehorse he is. Always shows up, always throws down. I hate the draw for him here. I still will build a lot around him. He's overcome a lot of obstacles. I think he's without a doubt the best sprinter in the country. I just worry about that inside draw. He's going to have pressure from his outside. If Joel can work out a trip, if he can pop away from there and kind of try to flop out and get off of the inside, I think he's a talented racehorse who can get the job done. One thing he has in his favor is one of his main competitions, in my opinion, is drawn inside of him with the 1 following C. So we'll have to see what happens from a trip standpoint here. And then the 5, Aloha West, the type of horse I want. It seems to be improving. That could be picking up the pieces late. But I do think Jackie's Warrior will be tough if he can work out a trip from the inside, which is it's just a big question, especially at Del Mar. I just don't feel like you want to be on the inside. He's going to need to find a way to get out.
Personally, I think he's fast enough that he'll just break and get wherever he wants to be. I mean, I think he's got that kind of an early pace edge. But hey, JK knows his stuff, so we'll see if it proves to be a problem. He did end up picking him anyway. Let's talk about the Breeders' Cup Mile. The next race on our docket goes as race number 9. You know what? Let's send it right back to JK, AJ, and we'll let him go first on this one before we bring in the rest of the team. Here's JK on the Breeders' Cup Mile.
On to the Breeders' Cup Mile. These are the races where I struggle the most. trying to evaluate some of the European form. I do want to try to take in some input that I get from elsewhere. I've heard some really positive things about the one Master of the Seas. I also love the fact that Master of the Seas drew inside, should be able to get cover, should be able to save ground, should have pace to close into. Smooth Like Straight is a horse that I've always thought just really shows up and runs every time. He likes the California racetracks. He's at home there. He knows his way around there. And Umberto Rispoli knows his way around Smooth Like Straight. But ultimately, I'm going to pick the 3 Space Blues. I'm not concerned about the stretch out. This horse is going to save ground, get covered up. If you can go 7 on soft, you can go a mile at Del Mar, especially when you're on an inside draw and you're going to be able to save ground tucked against the fence. And when they turn for home, that sprint kind of kick, I think, is going to come into play. So I'm going to be building a lot of things, pressing around Space Blues, but I will be spreading using others. And I'm not going to give up completely on the full Raging Bull. I think Raging Bull could jump into the mix as well.
The spread rates for JK, I'll chime in because I have the same top pick as him, and that is Space Blues. But you know what? I'm going to bring in somebody who knows Space Blues better than the rest of us because she helped break him, basically, back in the day. Naomi Tucker, who do you like in the mile?
I feel like you're giving me too much credit, but I did work with Space Blues as a yearling. So that was about 4 years ago, like dating myself here. I was at Kildangan with the Godolphin Flying Start, and he was a bunch of the yearling colts that we broke that year. Now, my classmate Charlotte Rinkenbach did most of the work with him, but it's terrific to see how he's developed because he was always kind of a more nervous individual. We did a lot of work on that, but he's really just gotten comfortable. He led the Godolphin string around the turf on Tuesday, absolutely taking in all the sights. And JK was already saying it. If you go 7 furlongs, heavy ground at Longchamp, there is no question that the mile is going to suit. Love the draw for him as well. Just kind of save some ground and then tip out and go for it. So, look, I am clearly biased. I'd love to see our little Space Blues get their job done here. Do respect the number 2 Smooth Like Straight, though. He's no cheap speed. Great low draw. Loves the Del Mar turf. Always hangs around. He doesn't give in easily. And I have to mention, and this is maybe, the opinion that not always everyone will get to, think about Mother Earth for a little bit here, because I looked at that Queen Elizabeth II race that she just came out of at Ascot. When she jumped out of the gate, Ryan Moore actually took her back, and she kind of fought him for it a little bit. She was not happy being that far back. She was dead last all the way. It looked like he made a little bit of a later move as well. She still produced a kick on that good to soft going. We know that's not easy to do. And look who she ran behind. Dual Group 1 winner, unbeaten Ba'id. 5-time Group 1 winner, Palace Pier. Top male turf milers in that race at Ascot. I was about to say Royal Ascot. Champions Day at Ascot. Queen Elizabeth II says, I think she's interesting underneath. I don't want to count her out completely.
I'll dive right back in. Same top 2 as both Naomi and JK, which is kind of funny because Smooth Like Straight, I think, will be a big price, but he's got close-up form with Mo Forza, who's been the king of the division out there. And I just feel like at the price discrepancy they're going to be, and with the potential trip that Smooth Like Straight's going to be, he's the one I would want over Mo Forza. I keep Mo Forza in the mix, but really, I do think Space Blues is going to get an absolutely perfect trip from that low draw. I've liked how he's looked out there in the mornings. He's a very handy athletic sort. I think he's going to get around Del Mar just fine, and God, I'd be pressing him for sure. So I'm calling it 3, 2, and 6. Philip, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think Appleby actually said Space Blues was probably his best chance of the whole week, and he's live in like 5 races. I also think, Godolphin has, this year especially, they've sent a lot of horses to America. So I think they figured out what horses they can bring, what horses they shouldn't bring. I think it's a testament to him. The horse I'm kind of interested in is Hit the Road. I think he got a really bad trip last time. And he absolutely flew late. He made up like 4 lengths on Smooth Like Straight, and Mo Forza. He's run well at Del Mar. I don't think he definitely doesn't have to be as far back as he was the last time, but to get as much trouble as he got in a 5-horse field was just really weird. And they're switching to Johnny Velasquez in here. But to me, I feel like Space Blues is probably just the best. I just would note these turf, like I think I prefer Euros in longer turf races. Like I much prefer them in the turf than I do in the mile. I think the way the races run, they're really quick. Are you tactical enough? Can you get a hole? Like I remember Ribchester was coming over for Godolphin, and he was higher rated than Space Blues, and he ran 4th, I think, at Del Mar, and World Approval won because he just got a more tactical trip. So But I do think the confidence to have in Space Blues, the fact that he's shipped in one, he won in Saudi, he's won on firm, he's won on soft, and I kind of like the fact he's stretching out, that he's got a little bit more speed than maybe horses that have just been strictly running in mile races in Europe. I think he'll be pretty tough to beat, and I'd be running a lot of money through him. I think you have a sequence of races that feel like you could go single or something.
Recap those numbers again for me, Philip, in terms of your putting your top pick.
I'd be Space Blues the 3. I like Hit the Road the 8, and then I'd probably go Mo Forza the 6.
All right, lots of commonality between us in those races, and I think that's an interesting idea on Hit the Road. He's been knocking heads with those other California horses that we've liked, and will be a significantly bigger price. So I have no problem with that idea whatsoever. Let's move things along. Our next race, as we get to the sharp end here, the Breeders' Cup Distaff, and Philip, we're going to let you kick this one off.
I think this is just a great race. You have a lot of the best horses. I think tactically it's just really interesting. You got Latruska's 8-5. She basically wants to be on the lead. You got Baffert's filly Drew the Rail, and she's got a ton of speed. I mean, she's got like 44 and change speed going 6. To me, she has to just be on a complete send from the rail if she wants to have any shot against these kind of horses. And then what does Latruska do? Did she sit off? Did they duel? You got She Dares the Devil's got speed. We have Horologist in here. I don't think we're going to be on the lead. We've been on the lead in our last 3 starts. She's run well. I think what we figured out is like, she wants to do her own thing. You just ride her aggressive out of the gate. She gets the bit in her mouth. She wants to pull, and then you just leave her alone. You cannot rate her. But I think she can rate herself. Some of her best races earlier in her career. So I think she probably drew well. We would have maybe liked to draw outside She Dares the Devil. But if you draw outside of 2 of the 3 main speed, you probably can't be too greedy. To me, I think Midas' opinion is at some point you would think Latruska is going to take a step back. She's been going basically all, nonstop. She had very few breaks. She's shipped all over the country. She's had a bunch of really hard races. And at some point, does she regress, or does somebody else take a step forward? From a numbers perspective, she's running low 100 buyer speed figures. It's not inconceivable that a horse like Royal Flag, who would probably be my top pick in here, she ran 100 last time. It's not conceivable that or 99 and 100 in the personal instant, that she could take a step forward. Also, like she was a little bit more tactical in the most recent race. But, for me, I don't know that I have a really strong opinion outside of the fact I just want to be spread, because I think Latruska could take a step back, and I want to make sure I'm alive. Just given the fact I like Space Blues, given the fact I like Jackie's Warrior, I don't need to have a really strong opinion here. But my strong opinion is that I don't think Latruska is going to win.
Just give me a run of numbers you want in your spread, just for accounting purposes for our In the Money Plus people.
Yeah, so my top pick, I got to go home team. So Horologist, the 7, then Royal Flag, and then the horse I would like outside of that. I think Dunbar Road's mildly intriguing at a big price if the pace gets hot. Then she's 11.
That's a good segue into my opinion, because I really like Dunbar Road, and I think I agree with everything you say. I think the race is going to be run to suit. I think she's got some trip excuses, and I think she's really good. And then there's a horse that just blew me away when I saw her today on looks, and you can make a figure and form case for as well, and that's Clairiere. I just think she looks so good. I've been a fan of hers for a long time, and I think she's just the way she's looked in the morning, the way she's moved around the racetrack. I think she's got another forward move in her. So for me, I'm all about the 11 Dunbar Road and the 5 Clairiere to see if we can get the job done. And I'm with you. I mean, maybe she's going to stuff me in a locker, but I'm willing to take Latruska on in this spot. Naomi, how do you see it?
See, aside from Latruska, of course, has danced every single dance, dominates the division, handed She Dares the Devil the Oaks win in 2020, her only loss in 2021. Kind of have some interest in the number 3 Malafat for trainer Todd Pletcher. Just such a beautiful lengthy strider. She glides over this surface. Of course, she won the Kentucky Oaks this year. Noises were perhaps made about being a Belmont horse. There was a lot of hype around Malafat early. Look, this is the toughest test she will ever face. She is a 3-year-old, meaning I still think that she can continue to improve. And sometimes it seems like she kind of just does enough to like what she needs to do. So I'm hoping she takes that next step forward in here. But Latruska seems to be the one to beat. I mean, I think we were talking about possible Horse of the Year honors that people were discussing. If things go awry for certain horses in the Breeders' Cup Classic, Latruska has really done nothing wrong at all this year. So perhaps Philip's argument is interesting. When is she gonna take a breather or a step back? Is that gonna be at the Breeders' Cup?
Let's see what JK has to say. Let's see if he's with this favorite or against. I honestly have no idea on this one.
The Breeders' Cup Distaff, Latruska showed up and danced all the dances. Oaklawn, Keeneland, Belmont, Saratoga. She shows up, she runs, she's got tactical speed. She Dares the Devil's been dodging her all year. I just don't really see how they're going to beat her if she continues to do what she's been doing. I have no reason to believe that she's not going to do what she's continued to be doing. The two other horses I think are interesting, if you want to try to get creative in here, are the 3 Malafat and the 2 Royal Flag. If Latruska gets beat, it's likely because the pace was too fast. If the pace is fast, I can see a horse like Royal Flag coming rolling down the middle of the track like she's been doing and pick up the pieces. Malafat, on the other hand, is another horse who I think is probably better going 1.25 miles, but with real pace at Del Mar, tiring, deeper racetrack with real pace to close into. I think she could come running at 1.125 miles as well. She's going to grow up quite a bit from that Alabama. I don't think it's really a concern that she hasn't raced since then. Todd kind of said that all along immediately after the Alabama, that he was going to train her up to the distaff. And when it comes to a Hall of Famer like Todd, I believe in him. But I think Latruska will be hard to beat. If she does get beat, I think it's one of the other 2 fillies, the 2 or the 3.
Next up, we have the Breeders' Cup Turf, race number 11, 7:40 Eastern, the scheduled post time. Philip, what numbers will be on your tickets?
Yeah, I think, again, I'll go probably somewhat skinny in the Classic. I'll be skinny in the first couple legs of the pick 5. So to me, this is another race that I'll be spreading in. I think domestic spending feels obvious. I think I kind of wanted to bet Trip Hooven because I thought, and then he drew directly inside of Acclimate. And I'm like, I don't know that that's going to do anything. And you could have a 1.5 mile race that actually has a pretty fast pace. I ended up falling on Gufo. I just think his price was inflated because I think he made an early move, hit the front, and Rock Emperor just kind of got the run of the race. So for me, I think if he wins that, he's like 4-1, and I probably don't want to play him. I think if he times the run better, he ends up, winning the last race, and I think I'm just going to get a lot better odds here. So I'd probably play Gufo. I think Tarnawa was obviously really interesting. I just don't love the far outside draw. But she could certainly repeat, and she'd probably be my second choice of what's going to be a short price. But I ended up going with Gufo on top. I think you'd make a case for a bunch of the other ones. Price, to me, it was interesting. Walton Street ran a 110 buyer last time. He's 8-1. Which personally, I'm just hoping he takes a ton of steam. That all the American people are like, can you believe he ran that fast? And they bet him because I'm just not sure. Del Mar's the right kind of style. Woodbine's that big sweeping turn. The stretch is really long. You can he got a great trip in there. So I was hoping he was going to be like 4-1 and I could fade him a little bit. But to me, I just think Gufo maybe times the run right. Domestic spinning, maybe not quite sure he's by Kingman. No guarantee he's going to get 1.5 miles. Said the same thing about Bricks and Mortar a couple of years ago, and he won the Breeders' Cup. So might put him right in the winner's circle, but I don't want Gufo.
All right, I'll list him in your picks. You said enough nice things about him. I'm with Walton Street in here. Now, granted, some of this is with the ability to get down in fixed odds. And earlier in the week, Walton Street with his 110 buyer and then formed the previous race a length to the ARC winner, the most prestigious turf race in the world. I just felt like 16-1 was a wild price when that was around. But if he's 8 or 10-1, I still think he's a good horse to key around. I just think he's going to get a great trip. You raise a valid concern. How about how different and tighter this turf course is than that one? But he's done well in all different kinds of configurations, and he's got the speed to be positioned ahead of some of these other runners. I do want some domestic spending on my tickets as well. I just think he is a little bit dirtied up coming out of the false pace race from Arlington. Those are 2 numbers I want for sure. And then Tarnawa, she's the best. She's got the best form in the race and is just such an incredibly cool horse. I do not like the draw one bit, but in my pick bets and whatnot, I ain't getting beaten by her. That is for sure. Too much of a favorite of mine. And we'll see. Maybe the USA tote crowd is going to all have the same reaction that a lot of people are, and be very negative about that post. And maybe her price can drift out a little bit. Naomi, I know you're a big Tarnawa fan, but is she your pick in the Breeders' Cup Turf?
She is. And if Walton Street doesn't win, I gain some Breeders' Cup gear, I do believe, Pete.
I thought we said it was a head-to-head. I thought we were going to give you a head-to-head, and it's not.
Okay, well, maybe it's a head-to-head.
Yeah,
fine.
so, I mean,
selective listening here.
Yeah, Walton Street. I mean, granted, it's not terrible. You're drawing real live to get the Breeders' Cup gear that I promised that I was going to give you anyway. By the way, with my 10-to-1 shot against your
I mean, it is a little bit unfair. I'm agreeing with you. Look, Tarnawa is the best turf horse on the ground right now at Del Mar. She's last year's defending champion. They gave her a break after that race at Keeneland. They didn't get her going until August. I love that for her. She's a 5-year-old. Give her a bit of time. And they brought her back, and she has been on top of her game since she came back. Look, 2 starts ago, the Irish Champion Stakes, small field, incredible renewal though. St. Mark's Basilica, unbeaten at 3, 2-year-old champion, was the highest rated horse in training. Now he has been retired. Carried her out in the stretch. She kept on running. Look, got beaten, but she was right there. And then Qatar Prix de l'Arc de Triomphe, she came rushing in between horses, splitting horses late on heavy going. That was really not ideal for her at all. I know there's now a question mark. Is this going too fast for her? I think she's the class of the class, and she can overcome the draw, overcome perhaps, again, sub-ideal ground like she did in the Prix de l'Arc. She's a class of the class. I have to say that she is by far, pound for pound, the best horse in here and the horse to beat. But do you like domestic spending? Of course, Chad Brown won this in 2019 with Bricks and Mortar. Upset loss in the Mr. D Stakes last time out, but that was because of the pace setup. 2 Emmys, the victor that day, got away with 52 and 2 for the half. Incredibly slow fractions. Tough to make up any ground. Domestic spending was closer because of that. He is a closer. Fabian Pratt was like, we're staying close to this. Try to collar 2 Emmys who just had the jump on him after having done no running whatsoever in front. So I like domestic spending here because there is going to be pace. We're talking about Tribuvan and Acclimate. They're going to go forward. That's going to set it up lovely for a horse like domestic spending, aside from the fact that I'm just in love with Tarnawa and I'm going to stick with her.
All right, 13-3 for Naomi. Let's bring in JK to get his thought on the turf.
On to the Breeders' Cup Turf. It's about 2 horses to me. The 3 domestic spending and the 13 Tarnawa. If you look at Tarnawa's form last year, and I like to look at time form US like the speed figures, her 2 races leading into the Breeders' Cup were slower than her 2 races leading into it this year. To me, that means she's in better form than she was last year, and that's pretty darn good form. Now, she is drawn towards the outside, which is a little bit of a concern to me, but I do think that she could work out a trip from the outside with her style. She's going to drop back, make one run. Could end up meaning absolutely nothing about her draw, but a horse that I think will get a good trip for sure is the 3 domestic spending. Without a doubt, the best turf horse in the U.S. This horse will tuck in behind. Flavian Pratt, I think, maybe was a little bit overconfident last time in the Arlington Million when he was, basically overmatched. He overmatched that field. I think that he'll be able to just tuck in. Flavian knows the racetrack at Del Mar, obviously being the best turf rider, best rider in California. So I'm going to go with the 3 domestic spending, but I'm going to try to get alive to the 3 and the 13. If you're in a spready situation, a couple of Chad Brown runners I would use, the 1 Rock Emperor, who seems to have really figured it out. Took the blinkers off last time. It ran a big number last time. I don't trust the horse, but he does have an inside draw. He could potentially pick up a couple of pieces. And then the 5 Tribuvan, it's a horse that should be out on the front end, aggressively ridden. And a lot of times those aggressive rides pay out. And I think that he will be a huge price and, like I said, on the front end.
1 race to go, and we've only got about 7 minutes left. So we'll just throw that out there. Let's get to, we don't want to give the classic short shrift. We do have some questions from the room there at Malone's that we definitely want to answer. We won't rush through this, but just throwing that out there for the panel to know. We will go a couple minutes over, but we can't go too far over just because it's Breeders' Cup weekend. It's pure chaos. Let's bring JK back in. We'll get his final thought. We'll get a chance to see who he's picking in the Breeders' Cup Classic. It's an open enough race that I have no idea, but given his love of speed horses, I'm going to predict he goes with Nick's Go. Let's see if I've got it right.
On to the Breeders' Cup Classic. basically all year I've been screaming at the top of my lungs about Knicks Go as a foregone conclusion to win this race. And I still feel like he's a very likely winner, especially if he gets loose. My concern is Hot Rod Charlie is going to run at him around the 3/8 pole, midway around the turn, and set it up perfectly for Essential Quality. So I'm very confident in saying that Brad Cox is going to win the Breeders' Cup Classic, but I'm going to go with Essential Quality. I will try to be alive to both horses because I think there's still a scenario in which Essential Quality does get loose. And what if Hot Rod Charlie doesn't fire? But I don't think Hot Rod Charlie will be able to run at Knicks Go, put him away, and then hold off closers like Essential Quality. Should be a fun race, and should be a gray horse trained by Brad Cox winning that $6 million Breeders' Cup Classic.
Philip, who wins the Classic?
Yeah, I probably think you laid it out really good. I think there's just a ton of speed and some of the logical horses. I think we talked about it last year, right? Like Baffert had a bunch of horses, all who wanted to be really forward, and he figured out Authentic's the one that can't win if he doesn't get the lead. And I would have said Maximum Security couldn't win either if he didn't get the lead. But I think Medina Spirit's like never passed a horse in his life. But he's probably just not I don't think anybody's as fast as Knicks Go. So I'd be playing it almost exactly how JK's playing it. I think Essential Quality is the most likely winner given the pace scenario. And I'd be putting savers to Knicks Go that if he gets out on the lead and they just say, hey, he doesn't want a mile and a quarter, that next thing you know, he's in the winner's circle. So I'd be focusing my wagering on those two.
Naomi, what do you think is going to happen here?
I love Knicks Go. I think he's going to slip away from the field and be able to carry them all the way there. But because we've discussed this at length already throughout the day, and of course, JK just laid it out as well, there is a lot of speed in here. Medina Spirit is going to absolutely gun it because that's his best chance. So if there's going to be a pace meltdown, I actually have a lot of love for Hot Rod Charlie in here because I do think he can sit further back if needed. He is my 3-year-old top contender in this spot. He can pass horses. He's been further back. Think of his Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he ran 3/4 lengths to Essential Quality. Think of the Haskell now. He was swerving around in the Haskell. Perhaps, Pete, that was also what you were highlighting. The blinkers go on, just that tiny bit of focus, making sure he stays straight. But I have a lot of love for Hot Rod Charlie, so I'm going to stay on board with him. But I do think most likely Knicks Go is going to take them all the way here, like Gunrunner did in 2017.
So give me your official number picks for my little
Okay,
grid here.
Knicks Go over Hot Rod Charlie. So that's the number 5 over the number 3.
5-3 for Naomi. I'm throwing a curveball in this spot. I like Max Player to pull the upset potentially at what I think is going to be a very big price. I'm hoping he gets a hold-up ride. I think there's a whole lot of speed in here, and I think there's a chance that horse who loves a mile and a quarter, as long as he's not ridden too close. If he's up too close, I mean, he's a candidate to run last, I think. But I think there's a world in which he could be ridden a bit more cold and come running through the lane. He's my official top selection in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. I just feel like the price is going to be too big. The race should be run perfectly to suit Essential Quality. He would be my other one. I just feel like the 3-1 price that he's going to be, that's just about right. And then I certainly see the Knicks Go just runs them all off their feet scenario. I'll have plenty of tickets, another array of tickets that just play that scenario and have him there. So for the record, it's 9, 4, and 5. I'll be playing in various combinations in this year's Breeders' Cup Classic. I understand we have a handful of questions to get to. Let's see if we can wrap those up in about 3 minutes or so. AJ, I don't know if you want to text them to me or pop them up in the chat. We can answer some questions for people in the room, and then we'll send everybody home and hopefully a little bit better informed when it comes to this year's Breeders' Cup. We'll do some premature thank yous here while we figure out how these questions are going to be transmitted to me. Something, I guess it's a host fail. We should have probably figured this out before the show, but always great to get a chance to talk racing with Philip Shelton, somebody who brings to the party a great knowledge of both the horsemanship and ownership side of things and also the handicapping side of things. Maybe this is a good chance, actually, Philip, for you to tell the audience listening at home how the Medallion partnership is a little bit different than some of the other racing partnerships out there. Other than having all these runners at the Breeders' Cup, what makes Medallion special?
Well, I think having all these horses in the Breeders' Cup is exactly what makes us special. We have 7 horses in training right now. We have a few that are done that are going to the sale. And we had 5 Breeders' Cup entries. Estilo with Talentoso unfortunately had to scratch. She came up a little bit off after a gallop yesterday. She was sound this morning, but just out of an abundance of caution. But, we're just very fortunate that we have a model because we're partnered with TaylorMade that it's financially set up to be more investor friendly because there's no markup on the horses. And it guarantees this high level experience. And that's what we're going after. We're not trying to go buy a bunch, have 50 horses. We're trying to have, 10 horses that are competing at the highest level. And I think this weekend's a testament to that. And I think it's great for all of our partners. We're very lucky, and we're really appreciative too of the people that we partner with. It's not just about our guys. It's about, like going to Vegas with my racehorse, Abundanza, horologist we brought into her. We have great partners on that filly. And it's been great. And it's just, we're very fortunate to be in the position we're in. I think it's a lot of hard work, and, TaylorMade has kind of allowed us to create this model that just makes it a lot more fun and a lot, more investor friendly.
Great stuff. Let's speed round the questions from the audience. From Jeremy Dieters, will Christophe Clement finally win a Breeders' Cup race this year? Naomi Tucker, we'll let you answer that one.
Well, I did very much like Pizza Bianca in the Juvenile Fillies Turf. So I think he has a very live runner. I know that he hasn't had the best record in the Breeders' Cup so far. But look, she was solid in that Natoma race. It's going to be a third career start. So much to improve upon. I think he's got a chance for sure.
I'll take this next one from Chase Shelton. What do we think about Jasper Great in the juvenile? He's gotten some wise guy support, this horse. Stephen Christ, who will be doing our Pro Players Roundtable, hopefully with us tomorrow night. If I can just confirm a time with him, mention him as a horse he's not going to let beat him. I was just concerned that the time of his big win in Japan was significantly slower than what other horses were running at the same distance on the same card. So I was going to let him beat me. I saw him in the flesh. He looked great. I wouldn't talk anybody off, but he's not for me. That's my short answer on Jasper Great. How about this one for you, Philip? Also from Chase. Which Medallion horse has the best chance of winning on Saturday?
Yeah, that's I think an easy one. I think Bella Sophia definitely has the best chance. I think she's my top pick in the race, and I just think the post position draw was everything for her. And I think the reality is Gamine Prate's got to take a step back, or we have to take a big step forward. But she's very lightly raced. I think she's handled everything really well since she's been here. And for me, from a value perspective, just even if I wasn't attached to Medallion, I would be betting going to Vegas. I just think at 12-1, given the pace scenario and the draw, she's going to be completely loose. And she likes to fight, and they're going to have to come get her. And she's 2 for 2 at Del Mar this year. So
there you go. Okay, here's one I'll answer very quickly because I think we already answered it. Rebecca asked about Hit the Road, saying live long shot, pointing out the trip in the last race. What are our thoughts for this one to hit the road, hit the board at a price? I think we all, Philip and I anyway, definitely agree that those California horses have a chance, and Hit the Road might be the best price of them. So that's definitely a live idea. And here's one I'm going to stretch because the question from Larry said, what's a horse that's 20 to 1 or more that we like best? I'm going to change that odds parameter down to 15 because I know that'll give Naomi an answer that she'll be happy with. And the horse could be even longer than that. But let's each give out one big price that we like the best, and then we will call this a show. Naomi.
Okay, yeah, my 15-1 morning line. Apparently he's getting hammered in Europe, though, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint. The number 1, Twilight Jet from Michael O'Callaghan. So much better over 5 furlongs. And I saw him at the track. This is a out-and-out sprinter. Really fast turnover action. I like him here as a price. I think he's very live, very much experienced, and this is his distance.
All right, Philip, I think this is an easy one for you because you have a top pick who should be in this price range, but give us your live 20 to 1.
Yeah, I think for me, like Charmaine's Mia, I think is just an absolute play at what is going to be a bomb price, and she might finish dead last, but I think she had an excuse last time. If you see her coming down the hill, she hits the dirt, loses her action a little bit. She's gawking to the inside because the rail's about to disappear. And I just think the 5 furlongs helps, and she's drawn outside the other speed. I bet a lot worse 50 to 1 shots in my life. I just think in a race to me where the likely favorite Golden Pal ran a number on speed figures that isn't great, the Euros, it's 5 furlongs. I just think there are a bunch of numbers that something crazy could happen in that race. And it just so happens we're going to have a horse that's probably going to be sitting second or third on the outside. And I just think that is a scenario that could work at a big number.
I'll give you another one in the same race who I think is live. JK made the case before, and I had on my list to mention and just didn't get down to her, but the 20-1 thing. Caravel, this is a filly that I've always liked. I love Phillips Point. I think we're all against Golden Pal at the price, and I think she could make some noise at a very big number. So there you have it. We got to all the questions in the room. We ran a little late. Hopefully it doesn't mess anybody up too badly. Time for the official thank yous. Let's thank everybody who turned up at Malone's first and foremost, and the entire Medallion Racing and TaylorMade team. What a great partnership it's been to be working with all of you. We'll thank Alex, who's in the room producing for us. We'll thank producer AJ, producing the live stream remotely. Molly Heyer for putting this whole thing together. She's been an absolute joy to work with as well. And then right here in the room, Philip Shelton, fantastic job as ever. Naomi Tucker, what a great pleasure it's been to have you by my side recording and doing podcasts all week. Even if you did make me go up in that hot air balloon, I'll even forgive you for the mortal terror that I felt 2,000 feet above the earth. JK, will thank him as well. He's fantastic. And that's going to do it. Thank you, everybody, tuning in. That we've got so many comments and folks, tune in the money podcast.com, in the money media, on your YouTube channels, or over on iTunes. You get a ton of content from us, a lot more on the Breeders' Cup, a lot of great racing stuff throughout the year. That's going to do it. This show has been a production of In the Money Media. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatel. May you win all your Breeders' Cup photos.